When I returned to my parents-in-law's house after the birth of my daughter, I found that my husband and my parents-in-law had joined together to purchase a luxury apartment. I was surprised, and I asked my husband, "Where did you get the money?" And he told me the shocking truth. With those words, I decided to divorce him and went home to my parents' house. And then, my husband and my in-laws faced a disastrous outcome. My name is Vanessa, and I'm 45 years old. I am raising my daughter on my own, who is preparing to enter middle school next year. I met my husband Bernard as a colleague at the same place of work. We started dating on the premise of marriage and decided to get married. Just before we got married, my husband said to me, "I want to live in a home of my own in the future. So will you live with me at my parents' house?" I hesitated because I did not think it would be right for me to live with my husband's parents so early in our marriage. "I am the eldest son of this family. I still have to stay at home. My parents are still healthy, but if I leave home, they won't be able to handle it if something happens to them." He smiled and said to me, I agreed because I wanted my husband to take care of our family, and I also wanted to own a house in the future. And then, when I moved in with my in-laws, they told me, "If you're going to live with us, I'm going to need you to put up some money for the living expenses." "I agree. If you're going to live in this house, I'm going to need you to pay what I pay." I was told, "I understand. If we're going to live in your house, we have to help pay the bills. Besides, I can show some filial piety to you both. Then as for the money, we can pay out of mine and Vanessa's salaries, right?" "Yes, that sounds good. It's our responsibility since we'll be living together." At this time, I thought that obeying my in-laws was just one of the duties as a wife. And so, we began to live with my in-laws. "I was so glad that you're both here." "Welcome." "Hello, Chuck and Zara. I look forward to living with you from now on." "You don't have to be so formal. We're a family now." "Okay, Zara. Thank you." "I'll show you to your room." So we were shown to our room on the second floor. You may find it a bit cramped as newlyweds, but please bear with it. Also, Vanessa, could you come downstairs after you put your luggage down? You're going to learn the rules of the house. There are so many things to teach you, like cooking and cleaning. Yeah, this is a good opportunity for you to learn things from my mom. Besides, you're my wife now, so I need you to be able to do the housework. You're a woman after all. Okay, I would love to learn from you, Zara. And so began our newlywed life at my parents' in-laws' house. When I first started living with my in-laws, Vanessa, can you do the laundry already? Once you're done with that, can you cook dinner? Vanessa, make sure you toast the bread properly. Make sure to clean the toilets too. Also, I need you to dust the bookshelf. Can you change the light bulb on the first floor? Change the one in our room too. Can you clean the AC? At first, I was fine with it and spent my days doing housework, cooking, and working, as I had done so when I was single. However, they gradually escalated their demands. Vanessa, how many times do I have to tell you? I told you to eat after everyone else has eaten. But, Zara, I haven't been eating properly lately. Why are you making excuses? You're here to be a wife. It's only natural to obey your husband and his parents. I am sorry, I'll be more careful next time. Come on, Zara. Vanessa, I want you to be a good wife to this family. Okay, Chuck. And at other times? Vanessa, when will you have children? I can't wait to see my grandchildren. Besides, I can't have a childless woman as my son's wife forever. Oh, of course. After you give birth to a boy, you will finally fulfill your role as a wife. Yes, of course. But Zara, my husband and I have discussed the timing of the baby, and we've decided when we'll have one. Bernard, is this true? If you want a kid soon, Mom, then we'll do that. What? But you said that we should cherish our time together. Did I say that? Well, we're getting older, so we should have a kid soon. Well, that's that. I want to see the face of my grandchild as soon as possible. They bring up the topic of children like this. And on top of that, when Zara and my husband aren't around,
Vanessa, how are your nights with my son? Perhaps you want some of my DNA.
no, thank you, Chuck. I'm fine with that sort of thing.
I see. Well, that's too bad.
He sexually harasses me like this during my days off from work.
Vanessa, can you weed the yard?
What? The entire yard?
Yes. Do you have a problem with that?
The garden that Zara said should be weeded by the end of the day is in disrepair and untouched, except for one corner of the garden that Zara uses for her gardening hobby.
Oh, yeah. And don't even hydrate or take a break until you've finished cleaning up the yard.
But it's quite hot today, and the temperature is going to keep rising.
What are you saying? Now that you're married into this family, don't be lazy.
On this day, I managed to do as Zara said. Indeed, I had married into this family, but I was treated more like the maid than a wife. That evening, I decided to talk to my husband about Zara's recent behavior. Bernard, I need to talk to you about something.
What is it all of a sudden? I have work tomorrow and I'm busy.
I have work tomorrow too, but please listen to me. Zara has been bossing me around a lot recently. It started out as nothing, but now it's more than just a joke.
What the hell? You're upset over something like that? Mom's just taking it easy on me now that I'm married and have a wife. Besides, we're family, so it's only natural for her to ask you to take care of things, and all you have to do is listen to her.
But
if you don't like now how she's treating you, I've got an idea to fix this.
yeah, okay, thank you. Please do. I decided to be relieved when my husband told me that. We had an uneventful day, but shortly thereafter, I found out that I was pregnant. I was currently working as a sales representative, which meant that I had to walk around a lot on my way to the outside of the office. Therefore, my current department was demanding in terms of work. And although there was a way to transfer to another department and work mainly in the office, I chose to leave because the morning sickness showed no sign of subsiding and I tended to get sick. And even though I was home resting because I was sick, Zara didn't care about that.
Vanessa, since you quit your job and are home, why don't you do something about the house? I don't know if it's morning sickness or what, but you're just spoiled.
I'm sorry, but I'm not feeling well, so I'll take the initiative and do the housework. Like cleaning up after my meals and laundry. That won't be too taxing on my body. My obstetrician told me to take it easy and I can't move around as much as you want me to.
In the past, wives used to do housework right up to the time of the birth of the child. If she couldn't even do her chores properly, she's useless. If you weren't bringing money into the house, we would have kicked you out of the house long ago.
Zara told me roughly. And from my husband.
You quit your job to stay at home, so why don't you take some of the burden off of my mom's shoulders?
I was told that I was to be treated as a complete housekeeper. From then on, I ignored the doctor's orders and spent my days doing housework at the behest of Zara, Chuck, and my husband. I was convinced that everything Zara said was right. And because I was forced myself to do housework, my health deteriorated and I was rushed to the obstetrician, where I was hospitalized and had to stay in the maternity ward until the birth of my child. I did not receive a visit from my husband or Zara, and the only people who came were my parents. I delivered my child safely, but my parents-in-law and husband did not come even when it was time to deliver the baby. Then came the day of the discharge, and I was hesitant to go back to my parents-in-law's house. But when my mother came to visit me, she said,
Vanessa, you don't have to push yourself. You can come home anytime you feel like it. We can all live together, and we'll keep the baby here for a while.
Thank you, Mom. I've made up my mind after I saw the baby's face.
I'm always on your side.
She said this to me and I decided to return to my in-laws' house. When I finally came home, my husband and Chuck were at work and Zara was the only one home. Zara then noticed that I had returned and turned to me and said,
"Oh, the useless dirty wife is back? I thought you'd never come home. Besides, you gave birth to a girl, not a boy. How much do you think you're going to disappoint us? Oh well. Anyway, I haven't gotten my money for this month yet. When will I get it?"
I had been giving my in-laws money for their living expenses even after I quit my job out of my savings. And I thought my husband had given them money as well, so I thought at that time that we were providing a pretty good living expenses as a couple. And although they treated me like a housekeeper, when I was really stuck, Zara would do all the housework for me, and I was convinced that I shouldn't say anything too extravagant. But I thought it was strange that she was asking me for so much money, so I said to her, "I'm not working right now, and you're okay taking money from me? Isn't my husband paying for living expenses? In the meantime, can't you make do with that money?"
"What are you talking about? I don't get $1 from my son who is my son by blood. I have never received any money from Bernard in my life."
"What?" I thought about the conversation my husband and I have when we first moved in here.
"I'm going to put in half my salary, so you should put in the same amount."
Because he had told me that I had been putting money in while draining my savings after I quit my job. I was having a hard time understanding the current financial situation, so I told Zara to wait until I talked to my husband about the money. "Hey, Bernard, Zara told me about the money for living expenses. So far, the only money you've been putting into your parents' house for living expenses has been the money I've been giving you?"
"Oh, guess I've been caught. Well, my mom may have told you, but I am the son of this family, and there's no need for me to put money into my parents' house. You're my wife, but you're a stranger, so it's only right that you should pay for the expenses."
I was stunned, but this finally made me make up my mind to leave my parents-in-law's house. I went to my in-laws who were relaxing in the living room, and then I said to them, "Excuse me, Zara, Chuck, I'm going to leave this house. Thank you for everything."
"What are you talking about? You can't just leave. Who's going to do the housework after you leave?"
And when I said I was leaving, Chuck, who had been listening to me in silence, said,
"That's right. If you hate us so much, it's not you who's leaving. We're leaving this house."
With that, he got up and went back to their room. My husband, who had come out of his room and was in the living room, approached me from behind.
That's how it'll be, so you can stay in this house.
With that, he went back to his room as if nothing had happened. I was standing there alone, unable to understand what was going on.
"We bought a condo for $600,000 anyway,"
Zara said, and went back to the room where Chuck was. I was so confused that I went back to my room and asked my husband about the condo that Zara had bought. "How were you able to afford a luxury condo? Where did you get that kind of money?"
Oh, yeah, we bought it with your money.
"From my savings? You used my money?" "In fact, in addition to my job, I own real estate and stocks. With the earnings from the house, I was able to pay my in-laws even after I quit my job. When I found out I was pregnant this time, I sold the stocks I owned and put them into my savings. And I don't know how he did this, but he took the money out of my account and bought a condo while I was in the hospital."
We're a married couple, so it's fine. Besides, you don't like my parents, do you? I'm glad I got to show my filial piety, and you're glad my mom and dad are gone too.
"No, that's not the point. You bought it when I was in the hospital, right? What were you thinking?"
It was really hard. You were in the hospital. Household chores were not getting done, and Mom seemed to be having a hard time.
"I see. I've had enough of you guys. Let's get a divorce. I'm getting custody of our child."
Fine then, leave if you want. But don't think you can get any money from us.
With that, I gathered all of my belongings and went back to my parents' house. After I returned home, my father introduced me to a lawyer, and I told him that I wanted to divorce my husband, that I wanted him to pay me alimony and child support, and that I wanted to sue him for embezzlement. My husband then received the notice from the attorney and said to me,
"Please, can we start over? Please."
And so on and so forth. He texted me repeatedly. My in-laws also visited my parents' house many times while I was away, which I reported to the police as a nuisance. My in-laws were also caught by the police on the same embezzlement charges as my husband. After being charged, they were soon released, but it became a rumor in the neighborhood and the relationship between my parents-in-law and my husband deteriorated.
If you haven't suggested buying a condo, none of this would have happened.
What the hell did you say? You agreed to buying the condo too.
He's right. Bernard, if you hadn't said you wanted to buy the condo, none of this would have happened.
What? What are you two complaining about?
Hey, Zara, why are you blaming it all on him? It all started because of what he did to Vanessa. What? You started it. You may think I don't know this, but I know you were sexually harassing Vanessa. I was tired of dealing with an old hag like you. Oh, I see. Then, let us be strangers too. Fine then, we'll get a divorce.
In addition, word spread to my husband and Chuck's companies, and they were told by the company to quit and were fired. The money for the condo was to be paid back by selling the condo, and they were to pay a small amount of alimony, $500 per person per month. Later, I had a chance to speak with a lawyer. Thank you for all your help, sir. What is going on with that family now?
I heard that once Bernard quit his job, he has started to work part-time.
I see. I'm surprised someone actually hired him.
Well, it's part-time, but he is apparently getting bossed around by someone younger than him.
That's what he gets. What is Zara doing now?
Zara doesn't have much work experience, so she is struggling to keep jobs.
I see. Well, as long as she can continue to make her payments, I don't care.
Chuck is also having a hard time like Bernard.
They all treated me poorly, so they are finally getting what they deserve. From now on in my life, I want to be a person who can move with compassion for others. And since I truly want my daughter to become that kind of person, I will do my best every day to be a good example for her.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry." I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.